Hello, hello, hello. Glad to have you with me as Formula One hits the road again for 2025. Pre-season testing taking place here in Bahrain. It is the last year of a regulation cycle, so could it be the closest F1 championship in history? Max Verstappen is going for a record-equaling 5th straight title, but he's not the favourite. Lando Norris is. Is that status justified? And what can Lewis Hamilton do in the red of Ferrari? So, lots of questions to be answered. Will the next 3 days give us some clues to help answer them? Time to get to work. It was a chilly, breezy 15 degrees in Bahrain as a youngest driver led the grid away for the first timed laps of the year.
We are raring to go down here at the end of the pit lane, and it might be 75 years of the FIA Formula One World Championship, but we've got an 18-year-old who's the first to go out. Kimi Andrea Antonelli from Italy, now racing for Mercedes, and he has been down here at the end of the pit lane for a good 5 minutes. So keen is he to actually hit the track and be the first person to be on track for F1 75. So the clock is ticking down. We've got about 20 seconds to go. Behind him is Fernando Alonso, the oldest driver in the field. So that's a nice bit of symmetry, isn't it? From one of the youngest, 18 years old, to Fernando Alonso, soon to turn 44. 43 at the moment, the Spaniard behind him, and then Nico Hülkenberg as well. But here we are, we're just about ready to go. F1 75, we have seen some incredible, memorable races, awesome displays of skill and bravery, intense championship battles in those 75 years of Formula One, and we are set for perhaps one of the best in all of those 75 years. We've got some great champions, and we've got the most successful driver of all time lining up with the most successful team of all time.
Lewis Hamilton completed 5 early laps with a big aero rake on his front wing. Ferrari have changed their front suspension this year. It's significant that Fred Vasseur was in early conversation with the FIA.
Something interesting going on down here. First of all, you would have seen on Lewis Hamilton's first run out that they had the aero rake. Now, the aero rake was positioned just downstream of the front wing. And that's because they needed to get a read on what the front wing was doing. And this area of front wing, and particularly front wing flexibility, is going to be key, perhaps the key, to this year's World Championship. Let me show you a little conversation that's happening right now to our right-hand side. And that's between the Ferrari boss, Fred Vasseur, and Yann Monchaux, the technical director of the FIA. But having that wing able to back off, completely legally, to back off on the straight so as not to penalise them in terms of the car's speed on the straight. And so something has changed. And that's what Ferrari are sorting out with the aero rake early on in this run with Hamilton.
For the first time since the days of Michael Schumacher, the most successful team in F1 has F1's most successful driver.
Exploring the limits, if you like, of this track, and now is definitely the time to do that. Testing, you want to know how comfortable you are in the car, how you can push it in certain conditions. We've talked a lot about it being windy, but nobody else seems to be pushing it that far at this stage. So maybe he already feels like he needs to hit the ground a bit running when we get to Melbourne. I think here it's going to be get settled in that car, understand everything that's going on, how the engineers are working, the systems, how everything's coming together. Try and, most of the young drivers will be saying push up to the limit, push up to it, but he's obviously pushed a little bit harder straight away.
Jack Doohan headed the timesheet in the first hour. He's one of this year's 6 rookies, but has faced questions. The initial signs are positive.
It's all going largely to plan. Okay. You know, as ever, we try and cram lots in, and things typically sort of squeeze out as the day goes on, as the odd small issue pops up. But everybody's working tremendously hard. The mechanics and the engineers are working well together to gather as much data as possible from these, you know, precious 3 days of testing.
Well, I guess that's what testing's for, isn't it? To kind of get those niggles out.
Yeah.
In terms of how are you feeling about your job as a team principal, this new role this year? Pretty cool to be here at testing, kind of starting a new project for you.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a real honour to be to be representing the team, to lead Aston Martin Formula One team. It's an super exciting project. Lawrence's vision of taking a small team and growing it, investing in all the equipment. The campus has grown tremendously, as I'm sure everybody's seen, and we're now dialing in all the environment. So a lot of that is the same. The outward-facing aspect of it is a little bit different. A bit like the 75-year celebration at the O2 that we were just talking about.
I thought you did a great job, Andy,
that sort of thing is new and different, but it's learning about the team, what we're doing, the processes, the tools, and then just how can we improve every single thing? How can we go chasing perfection in everything, and do it as quickly as possible, but without cutting corners.
Liam Lawson was first behind the wheel of the new Red Bull. How new it is has been a topic of significant debate in terms of its...
Let me tell you about what's going on at Kimi Antonelli's car at Mercedes. First of all, slightly odd to see Peter Bono Bonington. He's just obscured by Carl the mechanic in a second, but Bono is now, of course, engineering Kimi Antonelli. So I don't know how many times he's called him Lewis on the radio so far. I hope none, because he's professional as Bono, and he'll know not to do that. But he'll be saying, "Okay, Kimi." They've just been doing a little job on the front left brake duct, or drum, I should say.
Obviously, a fresh start for all of us, and just excited to see what the season will bring. This morning was a solid start for the team. The car's handling well. It's obviously very different conditions here compared to what we're used to. Very windy, and we also know that last season, for example, there were such massive fluctuations in performance from all the teams. If you come away from this test quickest, or fourth quickest, or third quickest, whatever, you maybe not be able to read too much into it. But nevertheless, the car seemed to be performing well.
The McLaren looked significantly revised. Were they the particular targets of the flexible bodywork technical directive? If the youngest driver led the way, the second youngest, Oliver Bearman, was conspicuously slowest in terms of outright lap time. Test that paved the way for a successful season. Oliver, you can compare last year's Haas to this year's. How much evolution is there?
Yeah, good question. I'm happy with the step that we've made. Of course, I haven't pushed the car to its very limits yet, but so far so good. The car feels predictable, which is always a great feeling when you jump in straight away. We've been doing a bit of fine-tuning across the day, and we'll continue to do so with Esteban this afternoon. But to start with, I'm pretty happy.
There's a sort of a calm assurance about the way Ayao Komatsu has drove this team. This is a bit like last year, which was a good season. Is there optimism you can have as good a campaign as last?
Yeah, of course, last year was a great season for the team. I think it was a bit unexpected that we had such great performance, particularly at the start. But, the team developed through the season well, bought some good upgrades, and that's a really nice thing because it's been a bit of a weakness in the past. So, no, I think we're quietly confident. Of course, we haven't changed a huge amount since last year, but hopefully we can continue that trajectory and have a great season.
Just briefly, David Crofty was saying there should be a cup for the rookies this year, or those in their first full season. How unfair a fight would that be? Do you think you could come out on top of it?
Well, I'll see what I can do, but there's a rookie and a Mercedes, which would make it a bit tough. But no, I wish all the rookies the best. I'm really happy to be on the grid with so many rookies, and really excited for the season for all of them.
Yuki Tsunoda, overlooked for the drive alongside Verstappen, faces a career crossroads at the year's end. So the team's steadily shaking off their winter slumbers. Look at Charles Leclerc, though. He looked like he was absolutely slumbering. But after the break, we'll see him in the Ferrari, and we'll see this man, Lando Norris, who is the championship favourite. How did he go in the McLaren? Hello and welcome back to Bahrain. McLaren are this year's Constructors' Champions, yet they have radically revamped their car, it seems. Does it bear out the old F1 adage that if you stand still, you risk going backwards? McLaren had 6 wins last year, second only to Red Bull's total. All 9 of theirs were Max Verstappen's, 5 of them in the first 7 events. Can Norris start the year better? McLaren think their car begins the campaign a more fully realised package. The Red Bull seems more of an evolution.
Launching your car is a bit like launching your away strip in a home fan stadium, and so you know, fans will always back the teams and drivers that they want to, and of course, you know, we've been the protagonists over the years. I guess the only disappointment I had with it was that, you know, the reception to Max as a 4-time world champion was, you know, that was disappointing. But you know, passion in sport is always going to be there. If the launches had been in Holland, no doubt the reception had been somewhat different.
There's some history making at Haas. It's on, and the fuse will blow. Mechanics worked by torchlight and rushed tyre warmers to back up.
Yeah, I mean, the wish is that we're all having a good fight. I think prediction, I think McLaren are going to be pretty strong. Lando said they found a lot over the winter, and he's looking pretty confident. So, but you know, we all wish to have a close fight. There's nothing more you can ask for.
Norris still had the odd wayward moment in the cold conditions. Oversteer here at turn 4. Meanwhile, Verstappen's car underwent significant setup changes to the floor and both the front and rear suspension. His best time was 2.5 seconds adrift of Norris's. Elsewhere, the first timesheet of the year then was topped by the championship favourite, with some of his likely rivals in close attendance. The headline lap times more or less lapped the floodlit second practice of last year's Grand Prix. All 6 rookies looked up to speed when track evolution and tyres were factored in. 16 of the 20 drivers exceeded race distance. As expected, reliability was strong. Well, a really interesting first day of testing, but Bernie's back with me here. It was lights out and the fuse will blow. Crofty won't forgive me for that, but that interrupted things. But if we were to look at the headlines from what happened today, Lando Norris quickly into the groove, backing up the idea that he's and his team are favourites this year.
Yeah, I think, you know, they seem pretty strong. They had some setup changes through the session that it looked like limited running from the outside, but the team's ensuring us that everything's under control, and, you know, definitely looks that way in terms of lap times. Ferrari looked quite strong, I think, in straight line speed. We didn't see an ultimate lap time, particularly on Lewis's side. There was a few mistakes, but straight line speed looked there for Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, he had some issues, a bit of rear instability compared to Charles Leclerc. Do you explain that by him settling in at the team?
I think there'd be a little bit of settling in, understanding the car. I think maybe the wind dropped a little bit, the track temperature came down a little bit. The team also will have learnt from Lewis's runs. So if there's any setup changes that they can make for the afternoon session when Leclerc was in the car, they will have done that. So there'll be learning on both sides probably there.
And I mean, the time's more or less the same as the floodlit practice session for the Grand Prix last year here in Bahrain. Who, if anyone, has taken a step? We talked a little bit about Aston Martin looking improved. Do you think they have?
Very unsure on Aston Martin, to be honest. I think they show glimmers of having improved, but is some of that fuel load? We won't fully know. Interesting that we're similar lap times to practice, given much cooler track temperatures. And I think probably everyone's still running a bit higher fuel load. Most people are running that soft tyre, as it would be in the race here. So lots to learn over the next few days, I would say, on that one.
Okay, fair enough. Listen, one news story to deal with, and there's been a few over the course of today, but I am interested in your view as a strategist of this idea. Well, it's now confirmed that we'll have 2 mandatory pit stops at Monaco. 2 tyre compounds will have to be used, not 3, which was the original thought here. Could that end up making things rather messy, Bernie?
It's definitely going to change things. So I've not read the full wording of the regulations, so I don't know if there's a minimum stint length or anything that means those 2 pit stops. My initial thought was, if you're at the back of the field, you do the 2 pit stops very quickly in the race, and then you run the entire race on a single set and gain positions as others stop. That was initial first thought. But maybe a slight, quick reaction to what was a very poor race last year with the red flag and absolutely no pit stops. Now, that's an outlier. Monaco's not the only race that's potentially subject to those conditions happening. So we've got to say, you know, two sides to the story. I think maybe a slight overreaction, but equally if we'd gone to Monaco and had the same situation as last year, we'd all be criticising for not having made any change. So the bright minds of the pit lane, well, at least have looked at it before this regulation has come out and come up with what they feel collectively potentially is the best solution. Lots more simulations to go before we get there.
Okay, I just see Charles Leclerc walking off into the night here in Bahrain, but that's all from us. We'll be back again tomorrow with all the highlights from day 2. Up next, stay tuned for Ted and that notebook of his.
Sky Sports F1.